There is something about you right now, some pattern, some belief, some way you keep showing up in your own life that everyone around you can see clearly and you cannot see at all. Not because you're not intelligent enough, not because you haven't tried to understand yourself, but because of how the mind is built. There is a part of you designed to stay hidden from you specifically, while remaining completely visible to everyone else. That's not a flaw in a few unlucky people. That's the architecture of every human mind, including mine, including yours, and it might be the single biggest reason your life hasn't moved the way you've wanted it to. No matter how hard you've worked or how many books you've read trying to fix it. I want to spend real time with you today unpacking exactly what a blind spot is, why it exists, why it's so remarkably difficult to find on your own, and what it actually takes to finally see the thing that's been quietly running your life from behind the curtain. Section 1: What a blind spot actually is. A blind spot isn't ignorance, and that distinction matters more than people realize. Ignorance is something you don't know, and the moment someone tells you you can absorb it, you can change your behavior accordingly. A blind spot is different. It's something you actively cannot see about yourself, even when it's pointed out, even when the evidence is right in front of you. Because the part of your mind responsible for protecting your self-image has built a kind of wall around it. You can hear the truth stated plainly and still not feel it land, because some part of you is working, quietly and constantly, to keep that particular piece of information from fully registering. This is why you can tell someone exactly what their blind spot is, using calm, clear language with real evidence behind it, and watch them nod, agree in the moment, and then walk right back into the same pattern within days. It's not stubbornness in the way we normally think about it. It's a mind actively defending territory it doesn't even know it's defending. Section 2: Why intelligence doesn't protect you. You would think that a sharp mind would be more likely to catch its own blind spots, but in my experience, it's often the opposite. Intelligent people are exceptionally skilled at building convincing explanations for their behavior, explanations that sound reasonable enough to satisfy both themselves and the people around them. Where a less analytical mind might simply repeat a pattern without much explanation at all, a highly capable mind will construct an entire narrative around why the pattern makes sense. Why this situation was different, why the same painful outcome happening for the fifth time was actually caused by something external this time. The intelligence isn't being used to find the blind spot, it's being used to protect it, to keep it comfortably out of view behind a wall of reasonable-sounding justification. This is why some of the most self-aware sounding people, the ones who can discuss psychology fluently, who can name every cognitive bias in the book, are often the ones with the most deeply buried blind spots, because their intelligence has simply gotten better at hiding, not at seeing. Section 3: The pattern that keeps repeating. Here's how a blind spot usually announces itself if you know what to look for. It's the pattern. It's the situation that keeps happening again and again across different people, different jobs, different chapters of your life, and each time it happens, you find a slightly different explanation for why this particular instance wasn't really your doing. Maybe it's a specific kind of relationship that always ends the same painful way. Maybe it's a professional dynamic that keeps repeating no matter where you work. Maybe it's a particular emotion, resentment, feeling unappreciated, feeling dismissed, that shows up again and again in situations that on the surface look completely unrelated. The common thread running through all of it isn't the other people, the circumstances, or the bad luck. It's you, present in every single instance, and the blind spot is exactly the thing preventing you from noticing that you are the one constant across every version of this story. When you find yourself explaining away a repeated pattern with a new external reason each time, that's usually the loudest signal that something deeper is being protected from view. Section 4: Why other people can see it and you can't. This is the part that's hardest to accept and also the most important. The people around you, the ones who know you well, have almost certainly noticed this pattern in you long before you have, sometimes years before. They see it in how you react under pressure, in the specific way you talk about certain relationships, in the almost identical language you use every time a similar situation goes wrong. They're not seeing more of you than you can access. They're seeing a version of you that isn't filtered through the same self-protective mechanism running inside your own head. Your mind has a vested interest in maintaining a certain image of who you are, and it will quietly edit, minimize, or reframe anything that threatens that image before it ever fully reaches your awareness. Other people don't have that same filter running on your behalf. They simply see the behavior as it actually happens, without the internal narrator softening it in real time. This is exactly why the people closest to you are often the ones most capable of naming your blind spot, and it's also why their observations frequently meet resistance instead of gratitude. Because what they're offering threatens the story your own mind has been protecting. Section 5. The emotional cost of finally seeing it. There's a reason blind spots stay hidden for so long, and it isn't laziness or lack of effort. Seeing your own blind spot clearly for the first time is genuinely painful because it requires the collapse of a story you've been telling yourself, sometimes for decades, about who you are and why things have happened to you the way they have. It can feel less like gaining insight and more like grief, because in a real sense, you are losing a version of yourself, the one who was always the exception. Always the one things happened to rather than the one who participated in creating them. This is exactly why so many people, even highly capable, self-aware people, unconsciously avoid the deeper truth even while consciously claiming to want it. The mind will accept almost any amount of surface-level self-improvement before it's willing to face the specific truth that would actually require it to rewrite its own story. Real change only becomes possible once a person is willing to tolerate that discomfort instead of retreating from it the moment it starts to surface. Section 6. How to actually find yours. If you genuinely want to find your blind spot and not just talk about the concept of having one, there's a practical path, though it requires real honesty to walk. Start by looking for the pattern, the specific situation or feeling that has repeated itself across multiple unrelated chapters of your life, and instead of asking why it keeps happening to you, ask what you might be doing consistently that keeps inviting the same outcome. Next, pay close attention to feedback you've received more than once from different people who don't know each other, because a single opinion can be dismissed. But the same observation arriving independently from several directions is far harder to explain away as someone else's misunderstanding. And finally, notice your own defensiveness, because the intensity of your reaction to a piece of feedback is often a more accurate map of where your blind spot lives than the feedback itself. The comments that make you shrug tend to be minor. The ones that make you feel a flash of anger or a need to immediately explain yourself are usually pointing directly at the thing you've been protecting the longest. Closing, finally seeing yourself. The truth is, you will probably never find your own blind spot entirely on your own, and that's not a failure, that's simply how the human mind is built. It requires other people, honest feedback, and a genuine willingness to sit with discomfort instead of explaining it away the moment it appears. But here's what I want you to carry with you. The thing holding you back isn't some external circumstance you haven't solved yet. It's very likely something you've walked past 1,000 times without seeing. Because seeing it clearly was never something your mind was going to hand you willingly. The moment you become willing to actually look, not defend, not explain, just look, is the moment real change stops being a concept you talk about and starts becoming something that's actually possible. That single shift from protecting the story to finally seeing the truth underneath it is where every real transformation in a person's life quietly begins.